World War II, humanity's darkest nightmare. 100 powerful historical photos are about to be revealed. Drop a one if you're ready to watch this video all the way through with me. Tuskegee airmen huddled over maps at Ramitelli Airfield, Italy, preparing another escort run. In March 1945, they faced flak above and prejudice below, flying for freedom they barely owned. Beneath the olive trees of northern Italy, 1944, Buffalo soldiers cleaned their Shermans and reloaded their faith, readying for battles that would outlast the war itself. During the brutal winter of 1950, deep in Korea's mountains, integrated U.S. units fought side by side. Proof that courage, not color, defined the soldiers who held the line. Marching through tropical mud, the first U.S. Army nurses reached New Guinea, smiling beneath the weight of helmets and hope, ready to heal men shattered by a war half a world away. Smiling amid steel beams and sparks, these women at Brooklyn Navy Yard stood taller than the ships they built, proving in 1944 that victory began far from the battlefield. Rain slicked the Welsh coast as Army nurses rehearsed gas mask drills, preparing not for comfort, but survival, while Europe held its breath for the storm of D-Day. Amid the wreckage of St. Peter's Hospital, nurses moved through dust and debris, saving what they could, mourning what they couldn't, as London burned under Hitler's relentless night sky. Wrapped in a blanket against the Balkan cold, 1944, a Yugoslav partisan smiled for the camera, her courage as steady as the rifle she carried through mountains and loss. If you like this video, leave a 1 in the comments. If you don't like it, like it. Among Berlin's shattered signs and ruins, she lifted her flags with pride. May 1945 marked not just victory, but the moment women steered history's next direction. Late 1944 in Italy, the Tuskegee Airmen's Airfield lay scarred by bombs and broken planes. But even in ruins, their mission and pride refused to fall. With calm eyes behind her scope, she waited in the tall grass, somewhere on the Eastern Front, 1942. Proof that even silence could kill in defense of home. London, 1941. 5 riders straddle their bikes beneath the smoke-filled sky. When sirens wail, they'll race through fire to carry one more message. By early 1945, in Tuscany's dense forests, a lone Buffalo soldier stood guard as captured German troops raised their hands, history's quiet reversal of the master race myth. She aimed with resolve, not hatred, a French resistance fighter disarming a wounded German soldier. In that instant, vengeance gave way to the fragile mercy of liberation. Brush in hand, these women painted warnings across 1942 America. each stroke a quiet act of defense, reminding a nation that vigilance was everyone's duty. Under factory lights in England, October 1942, women tighten bolts on a Churchill tank. Their work hums with purpose, strength forged from silence. Early 1945 in Italy's Apennines, Buffalo soldiers hauled their anti-tank gun through mud and rain, pushing toward freedom's edge one exhausting mile at a time. As Allied forces crossed the Rhine in March 1945, black gunners at Remagen held their post, watching over the shattered Ludendorff Bridge that broke Hitler's final line of hope. Behind the camera at the 1934 Nuremberg rally, filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl captured the rise of a regime. Her lens turned propaganda into art and art into power. In France's cold autumn of 1944, the 761st Black Panthers posed proudly atop their Sherman tank. Men who proved steel and skill could silence any prejudice on the battlefield. In 1944, Berlin, Adolf Hitler shook hands with test pilot Hanna Reitsch, a moment frozen between ambition and delusion, when flight served not freedom, but fanaticism. September 1943, Portsmouth. 4 Wrens guide a torpedo toward the docks. Steel and resolve move together, powered by hands that never saw battlefronts. At a factory in Lincoln, England, women paint words of hope onto cold steel. The year is 1941, and unity travels faster than any bullet. Leave 1 if you have seen this image before. 0 if this video makes no sense to you. Amid the frozen chaos of Belgium's Battle of the Bulge, December 1944, black quartermasters fueled the tanks, keeping the front alive while history barely noticed their names. Inside a dark barrack in Germany, April 1945. Survivors breathe shallowly. Liberation has come, yet death still lingers in the air thick with silence. In liberated Naples, summer 1944, African-American MPs rolled through the streets in jeeps guarding prisoners, protectors of democracy in a country that still denied them equality back home. Amid sirens and smoke, 1941 London saw women wield hoses instead of handbags, firefighters in skirts and steel helmets battling the infernos Hitler left behind. Inside a Soviet hospital train, nurses worked through exhaustion. 1943 saw not only battles on the front, but in every heart that refused to let another soldier die. In the freezing Apennine Mountains of Italy, winter 1944, black soldiers of the 92nd Infantry Division braved snow and gunfire, fighting 2 battles at once, one against the Germans, another against prejudice. In a hall of men and microphones, Madame Chiang Kai-shek's voice rose clear and steady, pleading for unity, courage, and the belief that freedom could still triumph over tyranny. In Suffolk's quiet woods, 1942, two women saw through fallen pines. Each swing of the blade feeds a war that never reaches these trees. At Montford Point, North Carolina, 1943, the 1st Black Marines stormed the surf in training drills, preparing to fight enemies abroad while still confronting segregation at home. Black tankers of the 761st thundered through Heilbronn's ruins in April 1945. Steel tracks grinding over the last defenses of Nazi Germany just weeks before the guns fell silent. Through the shattered ruins of Aachen in October 1944, German prisoners trudged under the watch of U.S. soldiers, their weary faces mirroring a nation's collapse amid crumbling walls and fading hopes. At Montélimar, in August 1944, a young woman's head was forcibly shaved, not by enemy hands, but by her own countrymen. The act, a brutal symbol of France's reckoning, marked the price of collaboration after liberation. When soldiers of the U.S. 85th Division entered Buchenwald in April 1945, they were met not with resistance, but with hollow eyes and emaciated bodies, the living evidence of the Nazi regime's unspeakable cruelty. In Rennes, November 1944, a French collaborator faced the ultimate punishment: execution by firing squad. It was justice born of rage, a chilling tableau of moral clarity forged in the aftermath of occupation. By 1945, Hiroshima had become a silent wasteland. The flattened city, reduced to ash and shadow, stood as humanity's grim monument to the atomic age, proof that victory can also bear the face of devastation. August 1944. Classrooms stood empty as Japanese children were sent away from their cities. Their small hands, once holding books, now carried bundles of clothes, silent witnesses to a war that spared no innocents. In 1942, across the vast Pacific, an American aircraft carrier carved through the waves. A floating fortress of steel and resolve, symbolizing a nation's determination to reclaim the seas. Amid the dust and heat of Tunisia in 1943, the 8th Army unleashed its 4.5-inch guns toward the horizon. Each thunderous shot echoed the Allies' unrelenting push to drive Axis forces from North Africa. On a November morning in 1942, deep in a ship's galley, a sailor sliced loaves of fresh bread. That simple act, warmth, aroma, routine, was a brief escape from the chaos raging just beyond the steel hull. August 1943. Lieutenant George T. Hartman passed out letters to the men of Squadron 84. Those envelopes, filled with love and news from home, carried more courage than any weapon before the skies turned to fire. Autumn 1941. Kharkov, a vital crossroads in Ukraine, fell under German control. Yet only a year later, the Soviets' failed attempt to reclaim it would embolden Hitler's armies, feeding a dangerous illusion of invincibility on the Eastern Front. From January to August 1945, the Battle of Luzon raged across the Philippines. Over 332,000 soldiers and civilians perished as American troops clawed back the islands from Japanese hands. One of the Pacific's most devastating campaigns. The so-called phony war shattered in the summer of 1940, when German forces stormed into France. In just weeks, the lightning offensive left nearly 500,000 casualties and forever changed the face of Europe. In 1944, the quiet rivers of Narva ran red. For 7 relentless months, German and Soviet forces clashed in Estonia's forests. A struggle so brutal, it claimed more than 500,000 lives before Hitler finally ordered a retreat. Winter 1941. The battle for Moscow turned into a frozen hell. Soviet losses surpassed 650,000, while 150,000 German soldiers fell within just 20 days, buried beneath snow and ambition in the bloodiest winter of the war. September 1st, 1939, the thunder of German tanks rolled into Poland. Within days, Britain and France declared war, and the world plunged into a conflict that would redefine an entire century. After Warsaw fell, German soldiers marched past the city's shattered facades. Once vibrant streets now lay in ruin, the first glimpse of the devastation that would soon sweep across Europe. In 1939, Adolf Hitler stood before his inner circle, preaching the dream of a greater Germany. His words, burning with fanaticism, foreshadowed the unspeakable tragedy that would follow. Far from Europe, on July 14, 1939, Japan captured Chusan Island. A quiet conquest that revealed its growing hunger for dominance in the Pacific, just before joining hands with Germany and Italy. June 1940. As Paris fell, Nazi soldiers posed proudly before the Eiffel Tower. The City of Lights was dimmed under occupation, its surrender marking one of the darkest triumphs in Hitler's march across Europe. Late 1944, the Netherlands. Crowds knelt in silence, praying not for victory, but for mercy. The victims they mourned had committed no crime but being born into the wrong race. A wound that would scar Europe forever. June 1944. Rome was free again. Allied troops marched past broken columns and cheering crowds, yet countless soldiers lay still beneath the same stones that had witnessed centuries of empires rise and fall. Normandy, June 6, 1944. The sea turned red as landing crafts opened into storms of bullets. Some made it to the shore. Others fell before ever touching land, their names swallowed by the tide of history. Somewhere in France, 1944. A soldier crouched behind a fallen motorcycle, the hum of war replaced by the echo of rifles. In that alley, Even shattered metal became a fragile barrier between life and death. Tokyo, December 23, 1948. Hideki Tojo met his fate beneath the hangman's noose. The man who once led Japan's armies to conquest now faced the silence of judgment as a broken world sought justice and closure. February 1945. In the shattered town of Gennep, Netherlands, snipers of the 51st Division took aim from the ruins. Through broken windows and smoke, they guarded advancing infantry, one bullet at a time, reclaiming a city lost to war. August 1945. The skies above Hiroshima and Nagasaki burned with blinding light. 2 atomic blasts ended the world's deadliest war, but also opened humanity's darkest chapter, where victory and annihilation became one. London, September 1940. Children sat quietly among the ruins of their homes. The Blitz had reduced entire neighborhoods to dust, yet their silent faces told a story of resilience no bomb could destroy. The British sniper's camouflage suit, a patchwork of leaves, burlap, and patience, turned men into shadows. From Normandy to the Rhine, it became an invisible armor against the chaos of the battlefield. July 1944. Somewhere on the Western Front, a British marksman steadied his scope. The world around him thundered with war, yet in that narrow lens, there was only silence, breath, and the distant outline of an enemy unseen. At a small French school not long after the war, July 1945 brought new sounds, not of gunfire, but of soldiers training with calm focus, ready to serve a world slowly finding peace again. Somewhere in Belgium, long before peace returned, Sergeant H.A. Marshall of the Calgary Highlanders stood firm in Capellen, 1944, proving that even in chaos, courage could still carry quiet dignity. In Tokushima, years after the guns had fallen silent, an elderly couple in 1956 carried their son's portrait through the streets. A gentle walk filled not with despair, but with remembrance and quiet pride. During 1943 in Culford, Suffolk, 2 young women worked tirelessly at a training camp, their laughter between tasks reminding everyone that hope, too, was part of Britain's war effort. When November 1944 came to Antwerp, a V-2 rocket struck hard. Yet by winter's end, trams ran again, shop windows glowed, and life returned, as if the city itself refused to surrender. Brush in hand, these women painted warnings across 1942 America. Each stroke a quiet act of defense, reminding a nation that vigilance was everyone's duty. In France's cold autumn of 1944, the 761st Black Panthers posed proudly atop their Sherman tank. Men who proved steel and skill could silence any prejudice on the battlefield. In liberated Naples, summer 1944, African-American MPs rolled through the streets in jeeps guarding prisoners, protectors of democracy in a country that still denied them equality back home.